You ever notice how your life feels normal, right up until someone points out the one tiny habit silently ruining everything? It's weird, most people never see it. They wake up, scroll, hustle, repeat, completely unaware that their brain is running on an outdated script. And the worst part? You didn't write that script. Someone else did. But here's the twist. Once you spot this one pattern, everything changes, your confidence, your decisions, even the way people respond to you. So before you continue your day like nothing's wrong, pause. Because after this, you won't be able to unsee it. If you're watching this, chances are you're the kind of person who really thinks, about life. You don't just move through your day on autopilot. A part of you is always observing, analyzing, questioning why things feel harder than they should. Maybe you've noticed that you're smart enough to understand what needs to change, but something keeps pulling you back into the same loop. You set goals, build momentum, then, boom, you're right where you started. And you can't explain why. You're not lazy. You're not clueless. You're not lacking discipline. In fact, you probably consume more knowledge in a week than most people do in a month. But that's the problem, isn't it? Your mind is full of information, yet your life doesn't fully reflect what you know. Everyone around you thinks you're doing fine, maybe even better than them, but deep down you know something is off. You feel capable of much more, smarter, sharper, more focused, yet the results don't match the potential. Maybe you felt stuck lately. Not dramatically, not in a crisis way, just a subtle stuckness, like you're walking with an invisible weight tied to your leg. You keep thinking, if I could just figure out what's holding me back, everything would change. And you're right. You're the type of person who doesn't want motivational fluff. You want clarity, psychological clarity. You want to understand the hidden patterns in your mind that quietly shape your choices, habits, and future. You want breakthroughs, not cliches. And most importantly, you want someone to finally articulate the feeling you've had for years but never had the words for. The biggest mistake people make, and almost everyone does this without realizing it, is assuming that their problems come from a lack of effort. They think they're not trying hard enough, not disciplined enough, not consistent enough. So they keep pushing, forcing, grinding, hoping that eventually something will click. But here's the uncomfortable truth: effort doesn't fix a broken direction. And most people are walking in the wrong direction without knowing it. Let me explain. Every day, people repeat the same behaviors because they trust their mind to guide them. They assume their thoughts are accurate, their feelings are reliable, and their habits make logical sense. But the human brain was never designed for accuracy, it was designed for survival. So when your brain notices uncertainty, discomfort, or the possibility of failure, it quietly nudges you back to safety. Not success. Safety. This is why so many capable, intelligent people stay stuck. They blame themselves for lacking motivation, but the real enemy is a subconscious pattern that prioritizes comfort over growth. And because this pattern feels natural, normal, you never question it. You think, this is just who I am. And that belief becomes the trap. Another common mistake is assuming clarity will magically appear once you fix your routine or get your life together. So people obsess over productivity hacks, apps, methods, books, anything that feels like progress. But most of those things just make you busy, not better. They give you the illusion of improvement without addressing the root cause. Here's the harsh part. You can't solve a deep psychological issue with surface-level fixes. You can't outwork a mental script that was written years ago. And you definitely can't escape a pattern you refuse to acknowledge. Most people never stop to ask themselves, why am I really doing this? Why does this habit feel so automatic? Who taught me to react this way? They treat symptoms, not systems. The real mistake is thinking the problem is outside you, your environment, your schedule, your circumstances, when the truth is, the real blockage is happening quietly in your mind. If you look a little deeper, the desire to fix your habits, be more focused, or stop procrastinating isn't really about productivity. It's about something much more human. You want to feel in control of your life again. Think about it. Nobody wakes up saying, wow, I can't wait to optimize my daily routine. What you actually want is the feeling that you're not constantly behind, not constantly overwhelmed, not constantly disappointing yourself. You want confidence, not the loud, show-off kind, but the quiet kind where you trust your own decisions. You want respect from the people around you, but more importantly, from yourself. Deep down, you're not chasing efficiency. You're chasing freedom. Freedom from overthinking, from self-doubt, from the fear that you're not living up to your potential. You want your mind to work with you, not against you. You want to stop fighting invisible battles and finally start moving in a direction that feels right. And that's why understanding your inner patterns matters, because once you decode them, you don't just change your habits, you change your relationship with yourself. Here's the part most people never notice. When you try to win an argument, you immediately lose power. Not because you're wrong, but because the moment you start pushing, the other person's brain instantly flips into defense mode. And once someone goes defensive, logic is gone. Reasoning is gone. Even basic listening? Gone. Their mind becomes a locked door, and you're on the outside banging like a desperate salesman. But here's the twist. You don't win arguments by arguing. You win by controlling the emotional temperature of the conversation. This is the silent skill almost nobody talks about. The real power isn't in being the smartest person in the room, it's in being the calmest. Because calmness changes the whole psychological landscape. It secretly flips the dynamics without you raising your voice, without proving anyone wrong, without showing dominance. Think of it like this: imagine two people standing in a dark room arguing about where the exit is. One person yells louder, flashes a tiny flashlight, waves it around, tries to shove the other person in the right direction. That's how most people argue: chaotic, loud, emotionally scattered. The other person just silently walks toward the door. Guess who looks smarter? That's the essence of the silent way to win any argument. Shift from trying to win the argument to trying to win the mind behind the argument. Here's where psychology sneaks in. Humans don't fight for truth, we fight for identity. When someone argues with you, they're not protecting the facts, they're protecting their sense of self. So when you attack their opinion, even gently, it feels like you're attacking their identity. Their ego goes full swap mode. But the moment you stop trying to prove anything, their defenses don't know what to do. It's like you're supposed to push back, and you just don't. Suddenly, the emotional air in the room gets weirdly quiet. That silence creates space. And in that space, their brain calms down enough to actually consider what you're saying. This is why quiet confidence is more persuasive than loud intelligence. The secret principle: guide the mind, don't fight it. Picture someone pushing a heavy door while you're trying to pull it open. Both of you think the other is the problem. That's how arguments work. Two people pushing in opposite directions, convinced the other person doesn't get it. But if you step back, let them push, and then gently guide the door, it opens effortlessly. Winning arguments is the same. You let them push. You don't resist. You redirect. Not through manipulation, but through emotional judo. These aren't surface-level tricks. They're shifts in how you think during conflict. 1. You stop trying to fix their logic. Because the real problem isn't their logic, it's their state. Emotional brains don't listen to logical solutions. If they're heated, no argument will land. So your job isn't to convince them, your job is to cool the emotional temperature until their brain comes back online. 2. You make the other person feel safe enough to rethink. People change their mind only when they don't feel judged for being wrong. If you make them feel stupid, they'll double down even harder. But if you make them feel understood, not agreed with, just understood, they relax enough to reconsider. 3. You create micropauses that reset the conversation. Silence is powerful. Not the passive-aggressive kind, but the thoughtful kind. When you pause before responding, the energy shifts. They expect an attack, but you don't attack. Their brain softens. Suddenly, they're curious instead of guarded. This is how you win arguments without arguing. You create psychological room for the truth to enter. think about the people you naturally listen to. It's never the loudest voice. It's the one that feels grounded, steady, unbothered. Their calmness makes you trust them. It makes you want to hear them. It makes you think, if they're this relaxed, they probably know something I don't. That's the vibe you're aiming for. Because when you talk less, your words carry more weight. When you don't rush to defend yourself, people assume you have nothing to fear. When you're not desperate to be right, people assume you probably are. Calm confidence is social gravity, it pulls people in. And ironically, people start listening to you more when you stop trying so hard to win. Here's the cool part. Once you stop fighting arguments head-on, the entire dynamic changes. The other person starts mirroring your calm energy, their emotional walls lower, they stop performing and start thinking, they feel respected, so they respect you back, they open the door to being influenced without realizing it. This is persuasion without force. Influence without pressure. Power without noise. It's the opposite of what most people do, which is why it works so well. Let's say someone accuses you of something unfair. The usual reaction is to jump into defense mode. That's not true, you misunderstood, let me explain. But watch what happens when you use the silent principle instead. They say, you never listen. You're impossible to talk to. Instead of defending yourself, you pause. You breathe. You let their words land. Then you say softly, I want to understand what made you feel that way. Boom. Emotional temperature drops from 100 degrees to 25 degrees instantly. Now they're not fighting you, they're talking to you. And that's the shift. Arguments dissolve when people feel heard. Because once they feel heard, they're finally ready to hear you. Winning arguments has nothing to do with facts. It has everything to do with psychology plus emotional intelligence plus timing. You don't overpower people. You outcenter them. You stay calm when they escalate. You stay thoughtful when they get reactive. You stay grounded when they become chaotic. They'll feel it. They'll adjust. And slowly, they'll start to align with you, not because you forced them, but because your energy made more sense than theirs. This is how the quietest person in the room ends up being the most influential one. Picture this. You're at a family gathering. Food everywhere, kids running around, that one cousin bragging about crypto again. Everything is normal, until it happens. Your uncle, who somehow knows everything about everything, turns to you and says, you young people have no idea how the world works. Instantly, your brain goes into battle mode. In your head you're like, sir, you still think Facebook is the internet. But you hold it in. Still, you feel the urge creeping up. That urge to explain. To correct. To prove you're not a confused toddler who accidentally grew into an adult body. So you take a breath, ready to launch your TED Talk. But wait. This time, you try the silent method. Your uncle crosses his arms. He's expecting a fight. He's prepared his classic weapons. Random historical facts. Outdated wisdom. A story about how bread used to cost 5 rupees. But instead of firing back, you just tilt your head slightly and say, what makes you say that? He freezes. This wasn't in his script. He was prepared to debate, not to explain himself calmly. So now he has to think. Actually think. He clears his throat. Well, I mean, you all are always on your phones. You nod slowly. Not sarcastically, genuinely. True. Phones are a big part of our lives. What's the downside you're seeing? Your uncle shifts. His voice softens. He goes from debate mode to conversation mode. Suddenly, instead of arguing about who's right, he's telling you about a coworker who got addicted to social media and lost his job. Now it makes sense. He wasn't criticizing your generation. He was expressing worry, clumsily, loudly, and in the most uncle-ish way possible. But because you didn't push back, he never felt threatened. And now, because he feels heard, he finally asks, what's your perspective on it? There it is. The door opens. You didn't shame him, correct him, or debate him. You didn't win the argument, you won the mind behind it. And ironically, he walks away thinking you're one of the most reasonable people he knows, even though you barely said anything. That's the silent power. Not dominance. Not cleverness. Just controlled emotional energy that makes people naturally shift toward you. Alright, here's the part you can actually use in real conversations. Think of these steps as the silent playbook, subtle, simple, but insanely effective. Step 1. Pause before you respond. Not dramatically. Not sarcastically. Just a tiny, thoughtful pause. This single second does two things. 1. It lowers the emotional temperature, and 2. It signals confidence. People who feel threatened react fast. People who feel secure take their time. Be the second group. Step 2. Name the emotion, not the argument. Instead of fighting their logic, acknowledge their feeling. Say things like, "You seem frustrated. It sounds like this really bothered you." This doesn't mean you agree. It just tells their brain, you're safe. You're heard. And when people feel safe, they stop performing and start thinking. Step 3. Ask a clarifying question. Not to trap them, just to shift them out of attack mode. Try. What made you feel that way? Can you walk me through what you meant? Questions pull people out of emotion and back into reasoning without them even noticing. Step 4. Gently introduce your perspective. When they're calm, share your view, but softly. Start with, "From my side. The way I saw it." Notice you're not saying, "Here's why you're wrong." You're offering context, not combat. Step 5. End with a bridge, not a wall. Wrap it up with a sentence that signals teamwork, like, "I think we both want the same thing. Let's figure out what works for both of us." It closes the conversation without creating lingering tension. Use these steps once, and you'll feel it. Use them consistently, and you'll become the person everyone finds strangely easy to agree with. Here's a mental trick that will make this entire method stick forever. I call it the inner room test. Whenever you're in an argument, picture the other person standing inside a small room in their mind. That room is filled with their emotions, fears, assumptions, and beliefs. When they argue with you, they're not fighting you, they're fighting what's already inside that room. Your mistake? You keep trying to break into their room and rearrange their furniture. But here's the twist. You can't change anything inside someone else's room unless they invite you in. So instead of kicking the door, forcing your opinion, or shouting directions from outside, do the one thing that actually works. Stand calmly at the doorway. Your calmness makes them curious. Your silence makes them feel unthreatened. Your questions make them step closer to you. And eventually, they open the door themselves. Once they let you in, your words land differently. They echo. They stick. They matter. This visual, someone in a room, you at the doorway, will guide your tone, your timing, your pace, even your breathing. Every time you feel the urge to win, just remember. Don't fight the room. Wait at the door. They'll let you in when they're ready. So here's the big takeaway. Winning an argument has never been about having the sharpest facts or the loudest voice. It's about managing the emotional space between you and the other person. When you stay centered, calm, and curious, people naturally shift toward you. Not because you forced them, but because your energy gave their mind room to breathe. And that's the whole point of the silent method. You don't overpower anyone, you simply guide the conversation by making it safe for them to actually think. Once you understand that, arguments stop feeling like battles, and start feeling like opportunities to understand people better. If this helped you see arguments in a new way, you'll probably enjoy the other mindset videos on this channel. They go even deeper into psychology, communication, and the hidden patterns that shape how we think. No pressure, no dramatic sales pitch. Just, if you want more, it's here for you. Thanks for spending this time with me. Now go test this. Stay calm, stand at the door, and watch how people open up on their own.